All right, everybody. Welcome to another video here on Magic Online. I'm the Semiotician, and today is the first time that we're going to have an actual guest on the channel. So if you've gotten sick and tired of listening to me ramble on about Doomsday, I brought along a Eternal Weekend top 8 competitor, Eric Ratkowski, so you can listen to him ramble on about Doomsday instead. Eric, thanks so much for coming on to the show. It's the first time doing it, so there might be some hiccups for us to work through. But I don't know. Why don't you start by just introducing yourself? Who are you? How did you come to Magic? And why Doomsday?
Thank you. Do I call you Mr. Semiotician? Or is that your dad?
Dr. Semiotician. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Just call me Scott. Just call me Scott.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Scott. I'm always excited to talk about Doomsday. I'm going to be excited to talk about this top 8 run, which was truly a remarkable experience. I've never done that well in a tournament before, in a big tournament, and it was an exhilarating weekend, and I'm psyched to be able to talk about it. I guess the quick story is, like some enfranchised legacy players, I started playing in high school. I'm pretty old, so I had dual lands and I was playing around Revised. A story I like to tell about that is that we thought in our little kid mana bases, we learned that 2 of each dual land is a perfect mana base in a 60 card deck because that's just 10 of each color. And so as my friends were getting out of Magic near the middle of high school, I acquired 2 of each dual land so that I could build this theoretical perfect mana base. And then I graduated from high school, put my cards in a binder and said, I'm never going to need those again. And that's true. For like 15 years, I didn't even think about Magic until I was working in a remote part of Newfoundland on the Fogo Island Inn, which is a luxury hotel in Eastern Canada. I was really bored. I was like, I wonder if anyone plays Magic. And so I started playing online and realized that people did. And there was a cool format called Legacy where I could play these cards that I knew were sitting in a binder somewhere. And then I moved to the Hudson Valley, and there were some really good players here. Still are some very good players. You might have heard of Rich Cali, and he ran a Legacy night right here in New Paltz. And that's where I started playing. I started on Nick Fit. Over a couple of years, I built up into Lands. Trust me, this is all going somewhere. Lands was probably the first legitimate deck, and I still think that version from maybe 3 or 4 years ago with Punishing Fire and Gamble and Loam was one of the most beautiful decks ever constructed.
That deck was awesome.
Yeah, it's just like a great confluence of synergies and kind of off the wall things to do.
I think the first time that I ever timed out on Magic Online was trying out that deck and trying to kill my opponent with Punishing Fire, Grove of the Burn Willows, and just watching my clock run down and then being like, oh man, I gotta get fast. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. If you ever want a little bit of entertainment, there's an LSV video where he played Legacy Lands. It has to be like 3 or 4 years ago now. And he's playing against traditional Rakdos Reanimator. And his opponent gets Gristleband into play and draws down to 2 life. And LSV is racking his brain thinking, what can I draw now? And I'm yelling at the screen, Punishing Fire. You're just going to win if you draw Punishing Fire.
That's amazing. Does he draw the Punishing Fire in classic LSV style?
Nope.
No, fair enough.
He drew like Wasteland and Lost.
Fair enough.
He's like, I could draw Caracas. I could draw Crop Rotation for Caracas. He's just like, okay. So I played a bunch of lands. And 3 years ago, I went to a big tournament in Philadelphia, like an SCG con, and I was prepped for white Uro piles. I had main deck, Retrofitter Foundry, and Field of the Dead. I went to time 7 out of 9 rounds. I went home, mediocre tournament. I was like 5-4. Went home and thought, I've got to do something else. I cannot grind like that again, despite loving lands and playing a lot of it. And you may have mentioned this, Doomsday is not cheap because Underground Seas are expensive, but if you own them, it's not unreasonable to get into.
Great. So you got sick of going to time. You wanted to come back, get the games over with a little bit quicker. And so you already had two underground seas at least because of your perfect mana base, and that's only a far shot to an LED and some Doomsdays.
I, in fact, had an LED that I opened in a Mirage pack, and by that point, I had 4 underground seas.
Wonderful.
So I really had no little investment. Also, and this is of important note, I played the first time I took this to Game Storia. So this was on 90s MTG. You might even be able to find this match out here from 3 years ago. I played a tempo version of Doomsday that had Delver of Secrets in it and Temporal Mastery,
Oh,
which
nice.
that was my like introduction to before I went all in it because personal tutors at the time were like $70, so I didn't start with
Right.
the turbo stuff. Um,
I think I've never played that deck myself because I'm relatively new to Doomsday by comparison. I've only been playing the deck for like a couple of years now. But I do remember seeing maybe Max Stortion, Max Gilmore, and some other people were doing that too with Temporal Masteries and like Murktide Regents, and you just like take a bunch of extra turns and kill your opponent with creatures sometimes.
yeah, it was kind of wild. Uh, Delver probably exited the deck pretty quickly, but like Baleful Strix, um, and Murktide Regent obviously is really good if you have a stocked graveyard with Doomsday. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yes, it
I
gets
think
pumped.
the
It's good stuff.
yeah, I think the deck was kind of between eras because Oracle had been printed, but Underworld Breach had just been banned, and there was like an Underworld Breach Doomsday thing going around.
Oh wow.
So people were trying out wacky stuff.
When Underworld Breach was briefly legal, I was playing Standstill, so I was not aware of any Underworld Breach Doomsday decks. But that sounds like a lot of fun.
So I played regular Doomsday, I played Turbo Doomsday for a couple of years, and actually I started getting really involved. I started talking to Mike Reed in the era that Psychic Frog and Tameo were in that tempo version of Doomsday, and I actually won a challenge with it.
Nice.
Um, that has to be maybe exactly a year ago. Um, I had a really good run with it then. Kind of the precursor. I played that tempo Doomsday deck at EW last year, again
Okay.
to middling results. Um, but I've kind of dipped my toe into the tempo versions quite a bit, even as I've tried to perfect Turbo Doomsday, and it's still maybe my first combo love.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, last year I was playing the just straight turbo, even though the tempo deck was much better last year, I think, with Frog as well. And then this year I went back. I just decided I wanted to play with Tameos. Um, and that I guess that's a nice 1 mana blue card that replaces the Delver of Secrets you said was soon to leave the previous deck you were describing. And I think you made good use of Tameo in your current deck. I have to ask, would you describe your EW list, the one that I've got displayed here? How would you describe it? Is this a Doomsday deck or a Reanimator deck? Because I feel like in some of the like analysis I've listened to about Eternal Weekend, your deck has just been, I think, unrightfully lumped in with the other two Reanimator decks. It's like very quick and easy to say, yeah, there's 3 Reanimator decks, 3 Forge decks, a Legend on Loampox, and Larson. But I think that too quickly glosses over something very special that's, you might say, hidden in the deck box or lurking in the sideboard here. So do you think of this as a Reanimator deck fundamentally, or do you think of it as a Doomsday deck in sheep's clothing?
I think it's a Turbo Reanimator deck that has a sideboard juke. Uh, the thing about this, it's a lot different than the other two Reanimator decks by probably 10 cards in the main board, which is a significant ish amount. It's trying to do something that is pretty seriously different, I think, than the other Reanimator decks. That's a really macro way of thinking about it, right? Because obviously it has the combo in there, but what the Reanimator decks are doing that are so successful is that they are combining that combo with a grind package.
Hmm.
That's what the Wastelands and the Murktides do. And I don't have any of that. I am more all in. So this is closer to 15 years ago, blue black Reanimator. The monsters are better, but it's got the quick combo. The common things are the Tamios, which in both halves of this deck, both the Doomsday half and the Reanimator half, and similar to the other top 8 decks, Tamio is just another threat that does so much. And that's what makes this deck what it is.
Yeah, I really like the way that Tamio can kind of bridge the gap between the strategies. I was playing Tamio in the main deck of my Doomsday deck on the weekend, and I was not playing Reanimator. I was just playing kind of Tamios in Turbo Doomsday, kind of in place of personal tutors. And it was nice creating like a kind of fog of war, where you play this Tamio out, your opponent doesn't really know what's going on necessarily. They're likely to put you on tempo or Reanimator, and then they start to like play toward the Tamio, and then I would hit them with the Doomsday. But it's almost like you've taken that same idea that I was experimenting with and kind of pushed it to its extreme by just putting all the Doomsday cards into the sideboard so your opponent never sees them game one, kill them with this Turbo Reanimator deck, and then completely swap off the Reanimator strategy into the Doomsday strategy. It's kind of like you're playing this extreme Gambit in a way. And I went and did some digging into the etymology of Gambit, and I believe it comes from the Italian word for gambetto, which means a tripping up or little leg. And so it was used in physical combat. You would trip your opponent using your leg in physical combat to get an advantage, and then it was adapted into like chess textbooks in the Renaissance as a play that requires a sacrifice to gain an advantage. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe you're sacrificing 11 or so sideboard slots so that you can get this kind of unknown advantage in games 2 and 3 when your opponents are expecting to have to fight against the graveyard and maybe Murktide Regents, and then all of a sudden there are no Murktides, there are no Barrogoyfs coming in, the Tamios remain the same, and now you've got this very powerful compact black combo that attacks the game from a completely different perspective. I don't know
I
if you have
want
any
to
thoughts about that.
Yeah, I want to say two very important things about that Gambit, which I think is what people are missing when this deck is not fully disseminated in these like breakdown videos. The first is that, so I also won a tournament this summer with this deck at a Bearded Dragon event in New Jersey. I went 8-0. I made top 8 after the cut, and I won the whole tournament. Um, Everyone in the top 8 there knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't tricking anybody.
Right.
But what it does is that even when they know it's coming, it forces them to divide all kinds of resources. Sideboard slots is one, but also mental energy. And there was a moment in round 15, my winning in against Hank Zhang, obviously an incredible player. He's not being tricked by the Doomsday. It took him easily 10 or 11 minutes to sideboard, and he kept switching one card out. To this moment, I don't have any idea what that was, but I don't know if he thought, oh, consign maybe is good enough, maybe isn't good enough against both halves. Like maybe I want another monster or whatever it was. It makes people, it makes them uncomfortable. And there is a massive amount of equity there. I could talk about several of my rounds, including an obvious one where my opponent mentioned before the game that they kind of knew what I was doing. And then they just next leveled themselves right out of game 2. They saw me shuffling my whole sideboard in. They saw me see them, and the wheels were turning too much. I switched to Doomsday, and they died. Like
Yep.
that's a really important thing. The other part, and this is, I think, was missed. I was listening to Eternal Glory earlier. The Doomsday sideboard makes me better against Mystic Forge in the
Mm-hmm.
second game.
Mm-hmm.
That's the plan I want to be on anyway. If I got to choose my game 1 matchup, I would just put Doomsday in there because
Yep.
they have main deck hate for Reanimator in Kozilek's command, and they don't have that much good interaction in game 2. I just want to be on Doomsday. I think I played Mystic Forge 5 times over the weekend, 3 times in the main event. I went 4-1. Um, and I don't think I lost any game twos. I
Yeah.
lost to Michael P. He was another top 8 competitor on Mystic Forge.
Yep.
I lost game 1 because he just played Saga and Soul Guide Lantern in the blind. Like, no idea what I'm playing, just like that made sense as his turn 1 play. I lost that game, and then I doomsdayed him both of the next ones. That's an example of someone who, again, didn't win because they didn't win or lose because they were fooled. I just had a stronger plan with Doomsday.
Right. Right. I like those clarifications as well. I think that helps put the list into perspective. I actually got to watch, I think it was game 3 of your match against Michael. And it was, I mean, in my experience playing Doomsday, we have a pretty good matchup against Mystic Forge, and it's one of the reasons to play Doomsday in the current metagame, I think. And I think you displayed that quite nicely. You had set up, I think, double counter magic for a pair of disruptor flutes the turn before you you went off, or the turn you were going off. You put Dark Ritual on the stack. They made the excellent play of responding with a disruptor flute, if I recall. And you're like, force of negation. They're like, how about a second flute? And you're like, I've got a daze 2 for end. And then it was a pretty easy move to Oracle from there.
That was such an epic match. And I found all weekend that the margins are so tight. I mean, I sent you that clip of Avon Barksdale talking about you only have to be slow once, you only have to be late once. And it felt that way. Like all these games, I thought I played pretty well and I thought I drew well, and still everything was on the razor's edge and it could have gone either way so many times, which is part of what made the weekend so exhilarating. Like I'm just tiptoeing on the edge this whole time. Very few easy matches.
Yeah. You have to work for all of the wins. I like that.
Yep.
Against Blue Black
Reanimator. That's what we want.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So then my experience playing against Forge is like, I usually feel pretty good on Doomsday, but when I'm playing against Reanimator and Blue Black Tempo, I sometimes don't feel so good. Are you playing remaining a Reanimator deck then in those matchups, or do you sometimes still like swap to kind of throw them off guard? What's the approach there?
It depends entirely on what they see in game 1. It depends how those games play out and what I see from their main board and how I think they might sideboard. Okay. I played Blue Black Reanimator 7 times in the main event. Wow. And I went 5-2, and my only 2 losses were to HJ Kaiser. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about epic stats from that. That's why someone was saying, oh, it might have been Zach, the Doomsday player that top 32 that had a really good run. He didn't play Blue Black Reanimator a single time. And I was like, are you kidding me? Here I am like grinding through these. So anyway, against Blue Black Reanimator, there were some interesting moments. I was switching back and forth. I want to see if there's anything really notable. Played against it in round 5, and that match was notable only because game 2, my opponent ultimated Tamiyo, and in game 3, I ultimated Tamiyo, and there was a critical turn where on my upkeep they bitter triumphed it. I had force and daze, and then they just conceded to the Tamiyo ultimate. So I can't even honestly remember which plan I was on there.
Yeah.
And if they ultimated in game 2, I don't know whether I switched or not.
Right.
It's just like irrelevant. 2 rounds later, this is the one that I mentioned. My opponent sat down. This is probably one of the only egregious mistakes that I felt that I made during the entire main event. He sat down and kind of said, oh, I recognize you. I saw you cast something sort of weird last round. And I chuckled and was like, I guess we'll find out. And then I mulliganed once and I drew my Cavern of Souls because I had played Mystic Forge in the previous round, and Cavern stays in the sideboard. And then after, when I was de-sideboarding from that match, I just put all 15 cards in. So we immediately call a judge, right? Yep. Judge comes over, determines that I'm playing with a 14-card sideboard. I'm going to get a warning, but that's not illegal necessarily. and the penalty is that I have to show the card to my opponent, put it into my sideboard, reshuffle, and draw the hand. So now he's seen Cavern of Souls. It's iced that what he thought he saw is definitely happening. And so
That's
I went
that's
like it
amazing.
was just helping with the next leveling. I won game one, and then game two, I see him looking at me. I shuffle all 15 cards in, and he just next leveled himself right out of the game. He was like, okay, I'm gonna bring in my graveyard hate because Eric knows that I know that he has Doomsday in the sideboard, and that means he's not gonna bring it in. And I just did. And
Yeah.
then he died a couple turns later with Dalthy Voidwalker. That's another hidden part of this, which is if they hedge against the Reanimator plan at all by taking out some of their stuff, they just lose out on their biggest I win button, which means like I think I heard that Hank sided out his Archon of Cruelty,
Mm-hmm.
which is like the biggest clock they can put on me. I don't if I have resolved Doomsday, I don't care that much if they get an Atraxa out there.
Right.
Atraxa is not nearly as fast a clock and doesn't take my resources away.
I feel the
Um,
same way about a Resolve the Tracks of post Doomsday for sure.
yeah, like maybe it helps them dig for their one or two consigned to memories, but hopefully you're trying to beat that anyway.
No, that's wonderful. So it
Um,
sounds like you actually had a very well thought ride all the way to top eight. Like if I played against 7 Reanimator decks, I probably would have been like 2-5 if I was lucky. And so what else what did your run end up looking like all the way down? If you want to give like a quick
do you want me to go match by
recap,
match?
if you want, it's totally your call. Or if there's any other highlights you want to point out, did like how are you doing before going into day two?
Like what was my record? I was
Yeah,
7-2.
nice, nice.
Um, I played two side events and I played one of the trials and I went 5-2 across those events, which confirmed my desire to play this deck. I knew it went quick. I always had time in my rounds, and I since I've been having success all summer, I was like, maybe there's legs to this deck. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
do it. So quickly in the main event, I won both games against Blue Green Omnitel. Then I won the first game and lost the last two against Blue Red Cutter. And this was actually Roland, who was undefeated after 13 rounds.
Yep.
And a massive shout out to Roland, who of course I know from New York City. He kept my breakers good right to the end. The reason that I was playing a win and in round 15 or 14 in round 15 is because Roland was also playing his win and ins. Like my tiebreakers were the best, and my only loss for so long was to Roland.
Right. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like we were driving back uh early, and so I wasn't there when you actually made the top eight, but I was like looking at the live updates of the standings, and I saw that you took your third loss, and I started to get sad. And I think I even messaged you being like, oh man, like at least we can still go for the tendrils, right? And then like a few hours later you're just going into top eight. I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. So Roland really helped you out on that front.
Yeah, it was really important. Also, well, we'll get to all this, but that like there were a lot of players who were at 11-3 going into round 15, and we just knew that the top two pairings at the 11-3 with the best breakers were playing win and ins. Um, the announcement when they came across the loudspeaker, 6th through 10th place all had the same number of points. So we all had 12 wins. But I just had the best breakers of all the 12 threes. And that has to be due to both Roland and HJ Kaiser, who I lost to late in the tournament.
Right.
Um, so after Roland, I won both games against Mystic Forge. And then I played a really tight one against Maverick. This opponent had a really beautiful, completely foiled Maverick deck. And the
Nice.
clock from Frenzied Baloth is no joke. I was on Doomsday uh, second and third game, and in game two, I saw Fairy Macabre, and they didn't see any Doomsday stuff. So they, of course, still have endurance, which is good against both halves. It's actually quite scary to see a green deck that's so heavy on endurance. But
Right.
I got there at one life in that third game, and oh, this round is very notable. My pile in the third game is they have maybe just Mother of Runes in hand, and my pile is Cycler, Cycler, Oracle, Petal, Oracle. I have my basic in play. I can like Island is in play. I have an Underground Sea. They can Wasteland me. They can Endurance me. And what ended up happening was I cycled into the Oracle. I played it. Oh, I had Force of Will in hand too. They swords it, and then they had Endurance, and that ran them out of cards. Um, but with my Oracle trigger, I put the other Oracle on top because I forced the swords, and then
Yep.
they had the Endurance. So I got the fake scry, but that means I put Petal on the bottom. They hit me down to 1 life, and on my turn, I had the extra mana to cast the Ponder that was left in my hand. I immediately shuffle and I draw the Petal, which is what I had
Nice.
to do to win with four devotion.
That's
So
amazing.
one life hit the 20 percenter because there were 5 cards left in the deck when I drew there. These margins so thin.
I love it.
Then
I love yeah, when things get shuffled around and you still like somehow do it. I had a game the other day where I had like 2 cyclers and an Undercity Sewer left in my deck that got like shuffled back post Endurance, and then it was like if I drew the Undercity Sewers off the cycler I had in my hand, I was like screwed. But if I drew either of the other cyclers, I could like use my land drop to get rid of the last card in my deck, and then I lucked out on the 2 out of 3 chances. But 1 in 5 is a lot
yeah,
scarier.
always got to play it out, right?
Exactly.
Just shuffling the deck's not enough.
Exactly.
Then I went win loss win against Blue Black Reanimator, and this was the double ultimating Tameo. Then I went win win against Mystic Forge. I'm 5-1 now. And then the next round, I won both games. This is the player that saw the Cavern of Souls, so they got
Nice.
next leveled. And then I was 6-1. Then I played the 2019 champ. They casually mentioned that between rounds, and win loss win. Um, I may not have shown any Doomsday stuff in game 2. They were so nonchalant about everything that they just kind of shrugged when I cast Doomsday in game 3, and then they lost. I mean, I, I thought seized, and they had like Barrel Goyf and Fatal Push or something. I don't know if they cared I was on Doomsday. I don't know if they cared about anything, honestly. Uh,
That's amazing. Just
so
like sure, whatever. I'll
yeah,
cycle to Oracle.
yeah. They're like, okay, you win. I was like, hey man, that's quite a nonchalant attitude. Maybe that's how you won in 2019.
Yeah.
And then I played Mystic Forge again, and I lost both games. The deck just kind of crapped out. Just didn't see anything. I was a little bit behind the gun all of game 1, and then oh, it's notable. In game 1, he saw like I played out a Petal early and I forced something, and he saw only stuff that made him think I was on Doomsday because he actually named Street Wraith with a Pithing Needle. So I knew I was going to lose that game at a certain point, and I cast a Consider just in my head, thinking, okay, I'm just going to make him think that I'm on Doomsday,
Yep.
confirm every suspicion, and then I'm going to play Reanimator in game 2, and that's what happened. But I mulled to 5 and never found anything. They eventually got a Soul Guide Lantern off of their saga that popped, and I just lost. I just
Okay.
juked myself, didn't draw anything. So I went into day 2 at 7-2. I was like in the top 20 overall. That felt pretty good. My breakers were still good because the Mystic Forge player that I lost to was still undefeated at that point. They kind of petered out on day 2, but
Okay.
um, my first match on day 2, which I barely showed up for on time, I was shooting this shit with faulted form out in the lobby, and I was like, oh, it's 750 or 8:58. I better go in, and everyone was already sitting. I was like, oh shit. Uh, so I played against Blue Red Cutter. I went win loss win, and I went back to Reanimator in game 3. They were hitting me with 2 DRCs, and this was my second blind surveil of a Archon to win that game.
That's
Uh,
amazing. I got put out of the tournament by my Reanimator opponent blind flipping an Archon off their Undercity Sewers. So it's a good powerful play when you can when you get there, you know.
uncounterable in Tomb, right? Unless you play
Exactly.
Stifle. You're probably not ever stifling a Undercity Sewers trigger.
No, no. I'd have to be damn sure. I'd have to like I don't know, what is it? Probe? No. Mishra's bobbled them first or something to check. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So then I was 8-2. Then I played against Michael P. I lost the first one to his blind Soul Guide Lantern. Then I won and I won. I'm 9-2. Then I played in the backup feature match against Blue Black Reanimator. I went game one, perfect Reanimator hand. I get the Archon in really quick. Game two, they do the same thing back to me, which is a little suspicious because often Blue Black Reanimator players in the mirror are taking out their reanimation stuff. Although
Right.
I suspect that at the top tables, they're actually leaving it in because Hank kind of did the same thing. And then game three was one of my epic rips. I kept a hand of land, ritual, ponder, Thoughtseize. I had to multiply. I Thoughtseize them. I see a handful of blue cards, nothing that really matters. I take a force of negation. They draw Thoughtseize for their turn, Thoughtseize me, quizzically say Dark Ritual, take my ponder, and I proceed to just rip Doomsday right off the top and win a couple turns later. Like completely off guard. I took their force. I knew they didn't have another force because they had played the Thoughtseize they'd drawn.
That's amazing. I remember you
That
telling me that at the event, and that's yeah. I think I said the best personal tutor is the one you never have to cast. I know you don't play personal tutors in your deck at all, but sometimes the gods just cast the personal tutor for you, and you smile.
I've played that card before. I know. I hear you. I hear that in my soul. What you're saying. Then I played Hans Goddick, and I lost both games. He had like 13 Force of Wills. It didn't matter what I did, I don't think.
Sounds like HJ.
Then I actually didn't know who it was until after the match. I was like, yeah, my opponent seemed like they'd been there before. And someone was like, yeah, he's been there a lot.
Yeah, he's a solid player. I remember because I used to, before I played Paper Legacy, I would always watching EW coverage was kind of like my Super Bowl. And I remember countless times seeing HJ in the top tables, just destroying his opponents and making it look very easy. So, yeah,
And he's so unassuming.
I know.
Just a nice Danish guy who likes to go around winning EW.
Exactly. Mad respect.
So then I was 10-3. That's when I picked up my third loss.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down in the second to the last round against a very young opponent who was very nervous. And I've been talking about this with like Max Gilmore and some other people, but I set two goals before this Eternal Weekend. Number one, I want to do better than the last couple of years when I was very middling 5-4. But also, given some of the discourse around this year, which I'm sure you're aware of with players and their conduct, I wanted to make a really strong effort to be kind to all my opponents. And this was a really important opportunity. This player was just so nervous. Their hands were shaking when they were shuffling. They were like, I think we're locked for the promo, but I don't know. I can't be sure. I guess we have to play it out. And I just tried to be really understanding. I told them I wasn't going to rush them and they should take their time and shuffle their deck, and we were okay. In game one, I just had a really strong protected Reanimator. We went to game two, and they just straight up jammed their combo into no interaction, and I lost. And then game three, again, very thin margins. They tapped out on turn two. They had a active Saga, play Saga turn one, then they tap out for an Illusionist. So I'm looking at the kill on the stack from their uncounterable Shuko. And they had double force, but I had Ritual, Doomsday, Days, Force of Will. And the Days on their second force gave me the extra card for my win on the spot Brainstorm.
That always feels great.
Yeah, like if they don't let me Days, I cannot win. But of course they have to force the second time.
Yeah, tight margins. That's wild. I've had that happen to me a couple of times, and you always just like, oh my gosh, it feels so good. I can also say that when I met you, I thought that you were one of the chillest, most measured individuals I'd like seen the whole event, and so I think your goal of being very kind it certainly resonated with me as well. I could just I got that sense from chatting with you that you were just a genuinely a really good human being, and so it's nice to hear that you were putting that in practice with all of your opponents in the arena. More
Thank
people
you,
should be
Scott.
like that, I think.
I met a lot of people that were doing that, and I thought it was a very successful Eternal weekend in that way. I talked to a lot of people who were trying to be good community members and made that a part of what they were doing. And I met a lot of people that I also think are really good humans, yourself included. All of the
Thank you.
community leaders that I met, like people who were going out of their way to set up dinners and all that stuff. And I write about this in the article that has not yet been published for Eternal Durdles, but is out there.
Nice. If that gets
Um,
published before I put this video up, hit me up with a link and I'll put it in the description below. But if not, go seek out this video on your own, viewers. You'll probably be the better for it.
Oh, and if this video comes out before my article, I'll definitely link the video. My
I,
chance to talk about everything.
there we go. There we go. I love to hear it. Does
So
that put us to the last round before top eight?
that does.
All
And I
right.
am standing outside the feature match area talking to my friends from New York City about breakers. Like, is there a chance I can make it? What happens if people draw? Like, if I draw, do I risk not even getting a top 32 promo? There were so many rounds and actually not that many people, like not as many as last year. So it wasn't going to be a clean cut. Um, Basically, everyone knew that I had to play. I
Mm-hmm.
do think that both Hank and I were locked for promos, but I have to say I was really intimidated by sitting down against Hank. Like, I know he's an incredible player. I played him many times in New York City, and I was intimidated. I had imposter syndrome all day too, and I know I quoted this to you. This is again the Avon Barksdale thing. Is like, how does anybody do this? Like, how can
Yeah.
you just over and over, round after round against killer after killer, like
Yeah.
HJ Kaiser, the 2019 winner? Like, it's just relentless, and you have to win them all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I played out of my mind. I had incredible luck, and I still barely made it. You know what I mean? Like, the margins are just so thin over and over. And so I sit down against Hank, and once again, I'm on the backup feature match. And it wasn't until top eight that I teased the stream manager. I was like, how come you don't want to put me on there? And they were dismissive. They were like, no one wants to see blue black Reanimator mirrors. And they were like, and I said, did you look closer at this list? And they went over, and Mike Reed leaned over the rail from the gallery and was like, yeah, they got Doomsday in the sideboard, which is why my final match against HJ Kaiser made it on stream eventually.
Yeah.
The commentators were like, well, we were going to show you top four, but we have an interesting deck here in top eight. So we're going to show you this game. And more about that in a second. The stakes were
That's
really high.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh, I was
sorry.
no, I'm just nodding along, but I remembered that you can't see me because my webcam's occupied by OBS. So just carry on, Eric. I'm enjoying
No
this.
worries. So good. I'm glad because I feel like I'm blabbing. You said I would, and not, here I am.
Well,
But it was
that's
just
all right. They would be listening to me blab, and I think it's nice to have someone who's good at magic talking instead. So this is good.
you're good at Magic, Scott. You got the promo last year.
I know. I'm just joking around. I have very self-deprecating personality, so that might come out more so as we proceed into the evening.
It's the way you got to be, right? We're talking
Exactly.
about these thin margins. Like, I don't, someone came up to me after they announced top eight and was like, congratulations, Eric, you deserve this. And my gut reaction, I just said this before even thinking, I was like, well, I don't think anyone deserves this. Like, we're talking about a kid's game. Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? But I was happy to do it. I'm grateful to the community. I want to talk about this match against Hank because
Hmm.
it was probably the most epic match of Magic I've ever played in my life. I really think the coverage team dropped the ball by not putting this on camera because it was sick. In game one, I mulliganed to six and I had an absolutely perfect hand. I'm on the play. I had land, ritual, entomb, reanimate, force, borrower. So I do the thing. Um, with 1 black mana floating, Atraxa comes into play, and I take a Thoughtseize off of those draws, and I Thoughtseize Hank. He has a couple of lands, a Daze, an Entomb, a Reanimate, and an Animate Dead. He also had basically a perfect hand. I take the Entomb, and because Hank is such a good player, he keeps playing. He knows the game's not over. I just dumped my whole hand to get this Atraxa into play. I might have drawn like 4 cards. I think I drew a Daze. I got another land, and a Borrower. The game is not over. We're playing it out. He reanimates his own Tameo to block. He has to chump with it. When he's at 10 life, and I have a Daze and this Brazen Borrower, I am thinking intently about the line that I think I have to do in order to win. If he draws a land, I know he has Animate Dead in hand. If he draws a land that's going to get his Animate Dead on the stack, at some point he got drawn another Entomb and put his own Atraxa in the graveyard. So I know that that's available, and I know that he has the Animate Dead. What my line I think has to be is when he casts Animate Dead targeting his Atraxa, I have to Daze. That taps him out, and I think he's low on cards in hand. With the Atraxa trigger on the stack, I have to Ritual, Borrower the Atraxa, and then hard cast my Brazen Borrower all before he draws.
Right.
Because he'll be tapped out. It doesn't matter what he draws. I have 10 power, and his Atraxa is not in play anymore. So I have to let him draw, then bounce it, or let him put that trigger on the stack. I can't stop the Animate Dead from coming into play. And then I should be able to win from there.
Yep.
I'm thinking about that line for a couple of turns, and then I do another Daze, and I double Dazed him, and it didn't matter. So really, really cool line. Could have happened, but it didn't.
Incredible.
And then in game 2, I definitely switched to Doomsday stuff. I'm thinking about the disruption I have and these difficult sideboard decisions that Hank's going to have to make. But he has essentially a perfect Reanimator hand. He Thoughtseizes me, takes whatever, and then Entomb reanimates. So that middle game wasn't so good. But game 3, I have to mull to 5. I keep land. No, I mulled to 6. Sorry. My friends were watching from the gallery, and they were all shaking their heads after the game at this keep and how it won. I had 4 useless lands. Maybe I kept 7. Sorry, I'll keep revising this.
That's all right.
I keep 7. It's 4 good lands, the Cavern of Souls, a Tameo, and a Thoughtseize. On my turn 1, I Thoughtseize Hank, and I see yet again almost a perfect hand. It is land, Daze, Tameo, Entomb, Reanimate. All the stuff.
Yep.
So I take his Entomb. He Thoughtseizes back and takes my Tameo. My first draw was Doomsday, and my second draw was Brazen Borrower. So he has my Tameo in play, and I go to Brazen Borrow it, and he double dazes, putting him to 0 resources. And on the next turn, I resolve Doomsday, and I win a couple turns later. This terrible 5-land hand just turned into his brainstorm. He told me later showed him 3 lands. He drew only lands. He didn't draw anything of note, and I managed to win. He did show a little bit of gamesmanship. I had a fetch in play. I had the Cavern in hand. I cycle down to my Oracle. I still have cards left in my deck, including another Oracle and another land.
Yep.
I play the Cavern. I play the Oracle. He taps 2 mana, and I'm just like shaking at the prospect of this Consigned to Memory coming in. And he borrowers my Oracle. So I tap 2 more mana, and I'm like, play it again. And he shakes my hand. And
that's a nice way to go. I like that's awesome. I put myself out of the tournament by casting a Thoughtseize when I had 2 life left. So yeah, I like when you you got to keep the Doomsday players guessing for sure. Just float 2 mana, pause, and then cast something.
Yep. Make them think about it.
Exactly.
So that took me into top 8, and obviously I got put out by HJ Kaiser in 2 games, but I missed a winning line in game 2 against him
Okay.
that I'm still kicking myself for because they had put me on camera. It would have been the most epic thing ever with my homies watching at home. Uh, I had a land and an uncracked pedal, so a tap land and this pedal. I had a Tameo on 6, which is important in a second. I had Thoughtseize in the graveyard, and my hand was Entomb, Reanimate, Force of Negation, Borrower. Hans had a few lands, like enough that my days wouldn't matter, but he couldn't hardcast Force of Will. He had a Brazen Borrower, and he had a Tameo on 3.
Mm-hmm.
No, his Tameo must have been on 1. And I know because I had Thoughtseize previously that he has Force and Daze in hand.
Okay.
For his turn, he draws Dauthi Voidwalker and plays it, and I do nothing. And then I lost a little while later. I think that I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to have to borrow that. But what I should have done is crack my pedal and entomb in response. I had
Mm-hmm.
already, earlier in the tournament, blind surveilled another Archon in response to a Dauthi Voidwalker coming into play. If he fights, my Force of Negation protects it on my turn. And then I can just reanimate on my turn and the game keeps going.
Yep.
If he doesn't fight because he's HJ Kaiser and he knows that I have Force of Negation in hand, well, I can just pick up my Thoughtseize with Tameo and take his days, and I do it anyway.
Right.
And I thought Force of Negation is useless here, and I just lost.
Right.
The margins are so thin. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
see the
that's
lines the whole
unfortunate.
time, and then
It's good though to know, like, to recognize though, right, that you made that error, realize that there was a way that things could have gone differently, and now you've learned something. So next time you find yourself in this position, you'll be ready to put the screws to them. But it is unfortunate when it
yeah,
happens
it's
on the in the top 8 of Eternal Weekend. But even getting to the top 8 is already an incredible feat to have accomplished, especially with a unique brew such as Entombsday. It's almost as wild as Pox top 8ing. So
well, thank you. Yes, it was a blast. Always fun to win, even more so if the games are also fun. And I guess I enjoy the mind game to an extent. It
yep,
is fun when you get someone. Everything I said philosophically earlier about playing the deck not being about getting them,
yep.
still, when you see your opponent's soul leave their body, it's a good feeling.
There's something, yeah. Well, hopefully we can. I guess we won't be able to see our opponent's souls leave their bodies because we're playing on Magic Online, but maybe we can get the feeling of it when we're playing a couple games here. Thanks for describing the run, talking about the deck generally and philosophically. Congratulations on your excellent run at EW. I think it's really cool. I was happy to see some Doomsday being cast in the top 8. That for me is a success on the weekend because I love this list. Having played a whole bunch with it over the weekend, is there anything that you think we should change about the deck before going into a league here? Is there anything else you want the viewer to know about the deck? Yeah.
It's very hard for me to point to changing something because it was so successful. I'm
Yep.
sure if I really, really thought, I think you could probably get away with changing Consider into Tameo and never looking back.
Okay.
It's just so unlikely that you need to build perfect piles. Um, you're either going to be able to take an extra turn against a fatal push, or they're going to be tapped out and not expecting Doomsday,
Mm-hmm.
or especially against like Mystic Forge, Consider doesn't really matter. Just against, if you're not playing against Solitude, Consider kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can make the brainstorm pile with a ponder instead. You just end up with one card left in your deck.
Yep,
I was going
it's
to
not
ask,
perfect, but
yeah,
that doesn't matter.
yeah. And so in my deck, I played a one of Reanimate to facilitate the classic Consider um, Reanimate Oracle piles. And sometimes that was like pretty cool. But I guess in this deck, you probably don't want to leave like one, like did you ever leave a reanimate in to fight against like disruptor flutes post Doomsday ever when you were juking against Forge, or it's because you're showing them all these reanimator cards in game one, maybe it doesn't make quite as much sense to leave in a card like reanimate and ever put yourself in a position where one of those fairy macaques they boarded in because they think you're on reanimator like snatches your oracle out from under you.
I absolutely left it in reanimate sometimes. If you
Okay.
don't need the cavern and you don't want all four of the disruption pieces in the sideboard,
Yep.
that's the first card you leave in for
Okay.
the exact line you talked about.
Okay, great. And so I guess like the argument then you like lose that little bit of flexibility by cutting consider from the deck for a Tameo.
Yeah, it comes up very, very rarely, and Tameo is so important as like attracting removal, attracting bolts, attracting whatever their interaction is that
Yep.
you can't go wrong with another one. A couple of my 5 lists online did have 4 Tameos, and Consider was in the sideboard sometimes.
Okay.
I just think of all the stuff, that's the thing. I meant to experiment more with Unmarked Grave, but never got to. So
I don't even remember what that card does.
you put a non-legendary creature in your graveyard. It's
Oh, the
non-instant
other
entomb.
Entomb. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it 2 mana?
Yeah.
Okay.
And not instant. It's much, much worse. But I think Matt Vuk had one in a challenge winning list or something.
That's Ozzy
Kind of,
Mendiaz, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of going heavier on the reanimate stuff. And this list, of course, with 2 Archons makes it a little better.
Yeah, so this I was actually going to ask you about that as well, quick. So the double Archon, this is because you're playing, because like in my mind I'm like, oh, we could also cut like an Archon for the 4 Tameo and preserve the Consider, but then maybe that's like because we're doing this more turbo reanimator thing where we still have like, I mean, in a way we can cast our like Doomsday in game one where we just go Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize, Reanimate, Entomb, or Entomb Reanimates,
Yeah.
right? And you get the Stone Cold Nuts. But you would never consider doing something like that because there might be cases here with Dark Ritual where you can like Atraxa into like an Archon or even sometimes like double Archon your opponent, or maybe that's Magical Christmas
I
Land.
I hard cast 2 Archons this weekend, so that line is out there.
Okay.
You can't really hard cast Atraxa. You
Yeah.
could, but it takes way more resources.
The pedals,
Um, Yeah, against in a side event, I played against 8 cast, and my opponent, I had like turn 1 Archon. They survived until a Saga popped. They got either Spellbomb, bounced it back to my hand, and then I just replayed it on my turn with 2 rituals.
Nice.
I felt bad for that opponent. They also were the primary frustration. The biggest reaction I saw to a Doomsday in game 2, they were like, "Doomsday, are you fucking kidding me?" And just kind of like packed up and left.
Fair enough.
No reactions like that in the main event. But okay, so the third monster leading up to it, I thought was critical because Nadu Breakfast plays Swords to Plowshares, and you can absolutely run into situations where you've reanimated your Atraxa and your Archon, and you still lose because they just swords them both.
Right, and we don't have
Like,
Murktide in our deck to kind of make up for that.
right. There's
Okay.
none of that grind stuff.
Okay.
Gristlebrand always underperformed because while typically against Swords to Plowshares decks, it does very well, you just need the trigger against like blue-red. You need the life gain trigger immediately because if they kill your Gristlebrand after you draw 7 cards, you're in bolt range.
Yeah, that's bad news bears.
And of course, I twice blind surveilled the Archon, as I mentioned earlier, and I had 2 of them. So it was twice as likely as the one outer that it would be otherwise.
Your opponent starts complaining. You're like, you don't understand. I have 2. Yeah. Awesome. So
This was always going to happen.
exactly. This is exactly how I drew it up. So my feeling is that you want to maintain double Archon Atraxa. Do you want to play Consider tonight, or do you want to go for Tameos to the wall and never look back? I leave it in fate in your hands, Eric.
let's play this list.
All right.
This you dance with the one you brung, and
All right. I like it. Uh, are you ready? Do you want to take a short break, or do you want to hop right in?
let's do it.